All right, 10 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Terry Thomas, Matt Unrein,
Present.
Greg Camp,
Here.
Kevin Dennis,
Here.
Jim Caston,
Here.
Mark Johnson.
Here.
All right, everyone, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Very good. We have the minutes from July 15th, 2021. Do I have a motion to accept?
Make a motion to accept minutes from July 2021 as presented.
Excuse me.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right, moving on. Approval of bills. Total
Approve
is,
the bills.
I'm sorry, what's that?
Motion to approve the bills with the addition of,
We
Yeah.
have no addition.
okay, well, then you go there. Motion to approve the bills as presented.
Can I finish making the, announcing the total, which is 336, 479, 31. Jim, would you like to make a motion?
Yes.
A second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Terry Thomas,
Yes.
Matt Unrein,
Yes.
Greg Camp,
Aye.
Kevin Dennis,
Yes.
Jim Caston,
Yes, ma'am.
Mark Johnson.
Yes.
Under old business, we had the project timeline. That was an email. I did want to let you know, we met with the Burns and McDonald folks yesterday. So we're expecting to have a preliminary engineering report by the 25th, which would then go to DNR on the 3rd of September. Drawings and specs to us on the 3rd of September, with a construction permit to DNR on the 30th of September. Expecting a notice to proceed on construction 1st of January, and collector roll number 2 goes on online May of 2023. Any questions on any of that?
Isn't that a lot longer than their original proposal?
It's still within that 15-month window, Mark. They
Yeah,
said they could add in some extra time, but the 15-month window could go as far as 19. But right now they're anticipating 15 months from the start of construction.
I think the question Mark and I had wasn't so much the length of construction, it was the length to get to notice to proceed. I'm just wondering, if we give them notice to proceed as soon as DNR approves, would they proceed?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So that could jumpstart a month or two, I guess. That notice to proceed's on us anyway, right?
Yeah, so once we have the necessary permitting, we are good to go.
Yeah.
Any other questions on the timeline? Hearing none, we'll move on to new business. It's our liability insurance renewal, which means Tony Becker from Custom Insurance is here this morning. Morning, Tony.
Thanks, everybody. Gentlemen, I'm sorry I don't get to see you in person. I hope everybody's doing okay.
We are. I am.
Guys, I'm sorry. I brought some visual aids here, but I thought that I was going to have everybody in person, so I did not send electronic copies out in advance. I'm just going to kind of read over some of this stuff. So your current carrier's Continental Western has been for several years. Continental Western made a few changes to their program this year, which were not favorable to you guys, but I think I'm still going to recommend you stay with them unless something changes in the next week or so. Their general liability rating basis changed. It used to be that they did not rate. They were rating based on your revenues and not on your customer connections. So now they have gone to a model where they're rating based on the ultimate customer connections between Festus and Herculaneum combined. So your liability premium has gone up quite a bit in the breakdown. And then the other issue is that you guys have a total combined property limit of about $14.5 million, which we'll talk about that number in a minute, but they have changed their property program such that it's going to have a $5 million earthquake sublimit, which means that if that thing gets knocked to the ground by an earthquake, you're only going to get $5 million to rebuild it, which is not enough, not remotely. However, still may be the best option in combination with a separate earthquake policy to make up that difference. We have two other carriers that are usually competitive on water supply operations. The first one we looked at, their property rates are way higher than Continental Western's because we have several other accounts with them. So I know what their pricing is like. And their renewal pricing has not been stable. They've been trying to get 10, 20% increases in everything this year. So my worry is even if we beg and scream and try to get them down to where they should be on pricing, it's going to be back up out of affordability next year. So that's not a good option. They also have the same earthquake problem as Continental Western. The second alternative, their pricing is pretty good, but they had to go to their corporate office, which I think is in Tokyo, to get approval to write earthquake limits that high. And they haven't gotten that approval yet as of the meeting. So I don't have that pricing in my hand. And then our usual earthquake, something must be going on in the earthquake reinsurance world that I'm not aware of, because we also haven't gotten pricing back from our usual standalone earthquake market. So we're having to kind of shake the bushes and see what shakes out on that.
Is there something that geologists know that we don't know?
Yeah.
Ivan Browning's dead.
Yeah, I suspect it's something more to do with the stock market than anything else. People are pulling capital out of earthquake reinsurance companies and putting it in other things because they're making more money that way. But bond markets and stock prices and things like that tend to drive these things more often than actual knowledge about earthquakes, in my experience. It's sad, but yeah. So my recommendation for right now is to renew with Continental Western. It's more expensive than last year, but I still think it's going to be your best bet. And then as soon as I get pricing back for that earthquake policy, my recommendation would be that we either the board can have a call to discuss it, or we can just go ahead and do it if it's below a certain threshold, or however you guys want to handle it.
Do you have an idea of what that might cost?
Based on other things that we've written in the past, I would guess somewhere in the $8,000 to $10,000 range. But like I said, that was with the market that we usually use, which hasn't given me a quote, so I don't know.
Okay.
And then the other concern that I have is based on the cost of this new collector well project, I'm not confident anymore that the building limits that we have in place are adequate. We have $9.3 million in change on the main plant, and we've got $4.1 million in change on the collector well that's existing now. Initially, when this project was built, it was about a $20 million project. And I think we deducted the cost of the land and the cost of the grading and blasting and all that stuff that had to be done. And initially it was insured for about 15 or 16 million. Then we backed off that quite a bit because in the Tom Ward era, because we got to looking around and a lot of that plant would not be rebuilt the way that it is if you had to start from scratch. So there were several components that just would not exist anymore if you rebuilt it. And then a couple of years ago, we revised it back upward because of costs of construction and all the new SCADA equipment and everything. But if we have the current collector well insured for 4 million and it's going to cost you close to 10 to build another one, I don't know what the existing main plant and existing collector well, I don't really know what their replacement costs are truly. And I hate to say it, but it's way beyond my expertise to figure that number out. So if you guys are comfortable either having Burns and McDonnell or somebody taking a look at that while they're there. because the reason the total, like, the odds of something catastrophically damaging that plant are pretty low. It would have to be a big fire, which I'm not sure what kind of fire you could have on the inside of the main plant that would really damage it that badly, because nothing's flammable. But an earthquake would do enough damage to the extremely crackable concrete structures, and you'd basically have to take that building apart to rebuild the clear well. So I think having it fully insured is probably worth taking the trouble to think about it a little bit. And that's all I got. The renewal premium for Continental Western is $49,862. And then we have the unknown of what the additional earthquake is going to be, but we've been working on that all week and I haven't got a number yet. I'm sorry.
Would we want to then authorize the premium renewal and then we'll wait to see what possibly 8 to 10,000 more?
Yeah,
on
that's what I would suggest, because
And then once you hear from Burns McDowell, I guess we'll just increase the liability.
I think as part of a total cost discussion is to get some numbers out of them specific to the value. I mean, we know what the replacement cost of the existing collector well is, which is going to be the cost of building the new one.
right.
So at 4 million, you're not even close to the 10 that would take to replace it.
Yeah. But then you have to think about how much of that is prepping the site and digging for the pipes and all that stuff, which
Right.
may not need to be replaced.
So we certainly have conversations further back as far as getting valuations in here correct. Anything else? So,
Mhm.
if anyone has any questions, for Tony, otherwise I would. I'll go ahead. No questions for Tony. I would accept a motion for renewal with the Continental Western for $49,862.
I'll make the, we renew. Continental Western
Building.
out,
on that
whatever.
allowance, we got that rider for up to $10,000 additional, or you want to wait? until-
Unless you guys want to just have a quick call, or I don't know if you can do things like that by email. It's not like I need the money that day when we make the decision.
Well, otherwise it's a month, right?
We want to authorize then
Up to 10,000 on the, that's,
on the earthquake rider.
Not to exceed 59,862.
You, so that's a motion.
Yes, as amended.
That's a motion. Very
Yes.
good. A second? Roll call, please.
Terry Thomas,
Yes.
Matt Unrein,
Yes.
Greg Camp,
Aye.
Kevin Dennis,
Yes.
Jim Caston,
Yes, ma'am.
Mark Johnson.
Yes.
And then if that other carrier comes back to me and they get approval to do the full earthquake limits without having to go to the separate carrier and the whole package turns out to be cheaper, we can do that at September 1st, October 1st, whenever. I know you wanted to change it so it coincides with the fiscal
Right.
year if we can.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Tony.
Real quick, Jim and I had a conversation with our friends at Burns and Mac yesterday. We were looking at backup power options. There are really no options. There's an option of one. So what we're looking at is being able to have a diesel generator that would serve both collector wells. The probable cost in the $1.9 million range. The main hangup related to all of it was the cost of providing a second power drop from Ameren was $4,000 a month in perpetuity.
Whoa.
Which was just outrageous. If we asked for a second power feed, they were going to charge us that much a month. So then it focused on being able to work with what power is already there and being able to serve both wells and provide backup power at the same time. The numbers from Burns and Mac are pretty solid. Obviously, we'll see pricing when we get a little farther along in the process, but I wanted to give you just kind of a ballpark one that right now, the collectible does not have backup power. So we wanted to make sure that we put some focus on providing emergency power if it's needed. And do that in a reliable and economical way. So we had 3 options initially, but 2 of them were contingent on a second feed from Ameren. And when we found out what the monthly costs from Ameren were going to be, it was just, this doesn't work. It doesn't work. So Jim, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that.
No, I totally agree with what you just said. That's, you know, our 3 options were really just one workable option, I think, because of the ongoing perpetual cost of the second feed coming in. So.
All right, so that's an update on that. Thank you. You have a report from Jamie on a quote for a duct bank swab inspection. So the duct bank is 2 pipes in the ground that feed power and telemetry to the collector well site. There was one installed and a spare installed. It's been in the ground now for some time. And if that second duct bank is open and still available to us, meaning it hasn't gotten clogged or filled or something broken, it would reduce our costs on the backup power. So Jamie was able to get a hold of Ashinger and get a number from them where they would be able to run a line through that open duct bank, and hopefully it will be open. And then we can provide that information to Burns and Mac, or it's going to add cost to the installation of a new duct bank with the new collector well project. Not substantial, but it will add up to $40,000 to $60,000 depending on the construction of the duct bank. So, any questions about that? If not, then I would accept a motion for the Ashinger electric quote for $5,900.
So moved.
So who did the first one? Kevin?
Yeah.
And roll call, please.
Okay, Terry Thomas,
Yes.
Matt Unrein.
Yes.
Greg Camp,
Aye.
Kevin Dennis,
Yes.
Jim Caston,
Yes, ma'am.
Mark Johnson.
All right. Budget draft for fiscal year 21-22. Obviously, we have some things we need to talk about. Michelle, you want to take the lead, please?
Yes. So basically, Jamie has not, if you look at the itemized line items on the expenditures, nothing has really changed. She's basically just carrying it over. We only reduced his maintenance and repair from 80,000 to 70,000. And then he's got his capital outlay request, which basically is replacement items. And I don't know if you want to go through each one of those, or are you just going to go ahead and authorize the ones that he's requesting? The main thing that I need to know is the proposed budget has a 3% salary increase. The state commission certified CPI for the period ending December 2020 was only at 1.4%. However, the urban consumers of the U.S. city average is 5.4, and the St. Louis area comes in at 6.1 as of June 30th, 2021.
I would just chime in to say that the budget the city's working on right now, we're anticipating a 3% salary increase, mainly because of these changing CPI numbers, which have jumped in the last 2 months. And the talk from the Fed about starting their tapering, getting out of the buy-up securities, not securities, but treasury bills a little earlier. They were talking about doing that in December and January. Now they're talking about doing it in September. So we would anticipate to see some market pressure on prices. So that's kind of the rationale behind the city's process of coming up with 3%. So I personally am comfortable with 3% increase, but it's obviously up to all of us to decide.
I have one
Mm-hmm.
Move everybody to a minimum of $15 an hour.
No, they were at 14, and then after 6-month probation, they got moved to 450 or 1450. And then after they got their C license, is it the C or the D? I always get those, is the D, then they go up an extra 50 cents.
I thought 2 years ago that we decided that everybody was gonna start at 15. Didn't we, Kevin?
Terry is asking if we had a meeting that the base pay would start at 15. I mean, I can go back to minutes, but I thought it was 14 and then 1450 after 6 months, and then an extra 50 cents once they got the license.
Well, my personal opinion, I don't know, remember the meeting or not meeting, but I think they should start at 15 an hour. I don't think anybody working a 40-hour week should make less than that. And I really
Right.
think more than that, but that's 15 is where we should start.
I do agree with that.
I agree with Jim, yeah. So it would be 15, and then when they get the other added on license and things. it
Then they would
up-
go up to 16.
Yeah, I think 15 is minimal. So what comparable to a laborer at Festus, Michelle? What are we in the ballpark? 15 seems low.
Our starting rate, Kevin, is 1520.
Yeah,
And then, obviously there's the annual raises, and then we're looking at an intermediate position. That would be something that council would consider.
Right.
But yeah, 14 is in today's marketplace, 14 is certainly low.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can we afford to bring it to 15 and then the add-ons for their license and things?
Right after there's, okay, so if you bring it up to 15, and say if a new person starts, then after 6-month probation, they would go up another 50 cents. And then after they get their license, which could take 2 years to get it, but they would also have their annual raise, they would get an additional 50 cents. As they go up in the license, they get an extra 75 cents, $1, and right, it goes up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whereas the city employees, they don't have that opportunity to get additional fees. And plus they also get, when they work evenings and midnight shifts, they get 65 cents additional for evening. And then they get 85 cents for midnights.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But Herky, our board just voted Monday night to start our starting salary is 16. And if they have a CDL, they get 1650 for public works. So Mark's getting ready to hire a couple people.
We're really not talking about very much because there's one at $14.90. I mean, it's only 10 cents, and another one right at 15. So I just remember at one meeting, I thought for positive that we raised the minimum to $15, increased everything above that, because we left out a B license, I think. We had to put that back in.
I think we had the B license.
Part of what we're gonna discover here is that we've got men that are working and have worked for some time, making $15 an hour that have licenses, and if you're saying a new kid off the street with no license, no credentials, gonna make the same, that may pose some workplace controversy.
Well, we would probably have to go back and adjust their rate.
That's what I'm saying. But
So
if
would
we
you-
go to the base, I think we're gonna have to adjust everything.
Yeah,
You move it up, everybody will move up. It's not.
yeah.
Everybody would move up an extra dollar, or would it be just the new hires that just recently got hired?
What's the most recent hire? Is that the one we're gonna talk here in a little bit?
Jeffrey Kranick was the most recent one.
What we did is that anybody that was hired within the last year, which was one person, we raised that person as well. Everybody else is here multiple years, and there's a we didn't do anything with their salary. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't do anything with all their salaries. Throwing that out there, that's what we did. So I don't know, some of these people have been here 5 or 6 years and got 5 or 6 cost of living raises, then, you know, they probably shouldn't feel hurt. Some of them hired at a higher rate than people that were hired before them already too. I don't know. That's a lot of checking up to do. So, but whatever everybody wants to do, I'm fine with raising everybody if you want to. I don't think we need to.
So guys, I don't have a dog in this, but if I could make a quick comment. I sit on the county's Merit System Commission Board, and they kind of give us a briefing every once in a while on the what they're doing with wages and benefits and everything. What the county has done is, as the minimum wage goes up, what they're looking at is not so much where the starting wage is, but how far is that starting wage above minimum wage? And since that minimum wage is a moving target and it goes up a little bit every year, they have had to increase their starting wages and a little bit into the mid-range because of what Matt was talking about, where, you know, if somebody is starting where an experienced person already is, then that doesn't work. So what the issue, well, all I really wanted to say is the issue you guys are looking at is being seen all over the place. And it's not just you guys, obviously.
Do we have a little bit of time for Greg and Michelle and whoever put a pencil to this and come up with a fair proposal?
Kevin, why don't we, we'll spend some time working off of a base of 15 with the 2 50-cent increases, one after 1 year, or I'm sorry, one after 6 months, and then one after they get their minimum license, which could take up to 2 years, and they would receive cost of livings in the interim. And then see how that affects the existing scale. Based on what I'm looking at, most of the guys are above $16. So I don't know if we would be able to do anything to affect them other than the proposed 3% increase. But we can have some revised numbers for our next meeting. But you would need to be prepared to adopt them then.
Right.
Because we would be into September, and we need to obviously get everything done before the end of that month. Does that sound good?
Well,
Yeah.
plus Greg, and again, maybe I should talk about this close. I don't know. We're going to be advertising. What are we going to advertise for starting pay? That's going to be happening probably pretty quick, right?
We can talk about that later. Sure.
Okay.
So if I'm looking correctly, I would say I kind of agree with Jim on the 2 employees that recently started, maybe taking, if you're going to start the base at 15, they've been hired within the last year to increase them up $1.
And that's what we.
Instead of the 3%, the other employees would get 3%.
Yeah, there you go. $1 way more than 3% in it. You're starting at 14 or 15.
Right. So right. The 2 employees that I'm referring to, like Kranick, his 3% would be 45 cents. So he would go instead of 45, he'd go to $1.
Yeah, that's a good compromise, Michelle.
Okay.
I like that.
Just want to make sure we're treating our people right and then, you know, showing our appreciation for the good work. So, like I said, I ain't as quick with math as Jim. So, but, you know, I think we're heading the right way.
Okay. We'll have an updated, the pages 27 and 28 in your packet. Michelle can hopefully put that together in the next day or so. We can circulate that to everyone to take a look at. And if we have any questions, let's get those kind of taken care of.
Right.
So that when we come into the September meeting, we're good to go. Does that seem okay?
Okay, so the other question is the 401 contribution. You guys, we actually have, I believe it's 4 employees now that are deferring their income into the 401k. So that's good to see.
Yes.
But the board also does contribute an amount to their 401k. They don't have to participate. So I'm asking that that continue at 2,500 unless you're wanting to up it, or a couple of years we took it to 3,500, but that was only because we had a couple of employees that had left that was not invested, and we were having money that was returned back to us. So we gave that benefit back to the current employees by raising their contribution up a little bit for those couple years.
I think the 2,500 is fine. For adjusting wages, I think that's one thing at a time.
Everyone good with the 2,500 contribution?
Sure.
Yeah.
The other item that the Water Authority pays to the city for the personnel, that which includes myself, our finance director, she reconciles the bank statement monthly, investments, audit schedules, agenda packets. We have AP that's being done, payroll that's being done. I would like to see that increased some from 7,800 to 8,500.
I'm okay with that.
The last time we had an increase was back in 18-19, and it went from 6,000 to 7,800.
Everyone okay with that?
I
No
am.
problem with it.
Yes, sir.
And you don't want to go through the capital items. I think you're probably going to be okay with what Jamie proposed here.
They look reasonable to me.
So the other thing we have is the wholesale water rate. So with the closing of the new revenue bond, the next 2 years, we're paying the new revenue bond plus the refunded portion of 2001C and the 2002A. So the next 2 years, the debt service is a little higher than it normally would be. So after those 2 years, it really averages out a lot lower. So we're going to have to adjust rates to cover those 2 years. And the rate model that I have, if you got it in there in front of you. So I originally were at $4.80. I was proposing to go to $4.90, and that would actually give us a 1.15% debt service coverage. We're required to have a 1.10. But then the following year, we would have to go drastically up to 560 to cover that operating expenses plus the debt service that jumps like 300,000 or so that following year. Now, Greg suggested smoothing it out for the 2 years. He suggested like 520, 520. Well, 520 didn't cut it. And you could see 520 or 530 in the following year is at only at 1.02% debt service coverage. And then
What's your growth projection? So have you adjusted the projected growth of
This
the
is all for
sales?
the bond covenant. We have to have 110% coverage.
Yeah, but if it's based on our sales, right, gallons? So what about growth is?
we don't have this one.
Debt reserve is also.
No, it does have nothing to do with growth. The cities might, but not ours, because you guys are under contractual obligations. So
Right.
you set your rates, and the two cities are contracted to buy so much water per month, and that has to cover your operating expenses plus your debt service. So it doesn't matter.
Michelle, do
Yes.
you have any idea what it's going to be after the second year? What's it going to go back
No,
down
it
to?
can actually go down. And that's something I think definitely in the third year, we definitely need to discuss taking it down, because it could go below 490. So if you looked at the rate model, when I projected what Greg had suggested, the 530, the surplus of cash is pretty drastic in that year. It's 427,200 that would technically, in all reality, go to your reserve fund. But then the following year, we're still only at the 1.02%, but you have a negative surplus. Now I've got a call into Mark Grimm and Martin, and I guess Armstrong Teasdale, wanting to confirm the rate covenant, because I'm getting where they're saying that so the 110% is based on average annual debt. So I'm taking the current debt with the average going out to the end of the loan, and that makes a big difference. So if you look at, there's 3 rate scenarios here. So the third one, we would be at 1.28 for both of those years. If it's based on average annual. So I need to clarify that. And then Greg thought maybe we can use some of the reserve funds to help with that second year, but I don't think they're going to allow you to do that because normally they want current revenues less current operating expenses into your current debt service. So you can't use money that actually we have like $1 million in reserve that we technically could pay part of the debt service if we wanted to bring that reserve down. But I don't know that you guys really want to do that, or especially if you guys are going to buy a 1.1 million gallon or 1.1 million generator. And what happens if your construction costs go up?
Part of the total package.
So you think, well, if we're going to fall within,
Generator is part of the total construction.
okay,
That's
okay,
all in the tender.
okay. But if you have cost overruns,
It's a fixed cost.
oh, it is a fix.
We will make a lump sum payment based on the bond revenue. And we'll have obviously subcontractor pricing for the total project.
Okay,
So once it's a lump sum, it's a lump sum.
okay,
So that's the benefit of the design build project.
okay.
The contractor-
Well, that's good to know.
The contractor's locked in.
Okay,
Michelle?
Yes.
Here's my 2 cents on the next 2 years. We can live with it here in Herculean if we have to, but we already passed our budget July 1 or just June 30. We did not raise the water rates. So if we jump 40 or 50 cents this year, I'm going to run in the red. If we wait and do that big jump like you suggested the second year, then I can get the rates raised next year and be okay. But if everybody else wants to go what Greg said, we can make it work here, but I'd
Really, Jim, the question we just need to ask is, are we okay with an increase from 480 to 490?
yes,
Because that, we're still waiting for bond counsel to get back to us on whether we're able to smooth the rate based on reserve cash, or if it all have to be something that's compartmentalized into a single fiscal year. If that's the case, then yeah, there will be a big jump. It's a question on how high, but for sure, for the minimum of our bond covenant requirement, we need to go from 480 to 490.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
yeah, and I think I told Rana, because this was what I had projected anyway, and my rate model was going from 480 to 490, so you guys should already have
Yeah.
known that number.
I was talking more like the 480, 530 or whatever that number threw out there for the first year. I didn't like the sound of that, but again, we can make it work if that's what everybody else wants to.
My suggestion would be to do the 490 this year, and then we take the big jump next year.
And that's for 1 year.
Yes.
That worked for me.
Buy wholesale water for $5.20 is making me sad. I'm gonna go think about earthquakes.
Thank you, Tony.
So that's really all I have for you. I think you guys gave me what I needed to get the proposed budget together, and then I'll just tweak this and send out a new budget draft for you guys to review. And then if you've got any questions, you can just get back with me.
Anybody have any other questions for Michelle?
No, sir.
Thank you.
We put a lot of work into it, guys. I don't know if you look at all the table charts, but there's a
Thank you,
lot of
Michelle.
work.
Thank
Hey,
you, Michelle.
Greg, you should give her a raise.
I'm
Oh, thank
working on
you.
it, Jim. Working on it.
Oh, yeah, where are we at?
You lost our place.
All right, under reports, we have the general ledger, revenue expenditure, any questions on any of that? Jamie's plant manager report is in there as well, page 36. Any questions about Zach? Hearing none. Any questions from the board of directors? All right. If not, then I would need a motion to go into closed session pursuant to Missouri law for the purpose of dealing with matters relating to personnel, RSMO 610.021.3.
So moved.
Motion.
Second.
Can we have a roll call on that, please?
On my paper. Terry Thomas,
Yes.
Matt Unrein,
Yes.
Greg Camp,
All right.
Kevin Dennis,
Yeah.
Jim Caston,